Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our City Council special meeting tonight. It is March 29, 2021. We will call the meeting to order at this time, and we will do so by starting with the Pledge of Allegiance, as we always do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, under one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I lost my place there. I've done it 1,000 times. I was waiting for somebody to pipe in. Moving on. Approval of the agenda at this time. I'd like to take any motions for approval of this agenda for tonight. It's a very short agenda.
So moved, Sullivan.
Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. Do we have a second?
Mahoney will second.
And seconded by Councilmember Leah Mahoney. So with that, I'll turn it over to Administrator Krugel to take a roll.
Sorry.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Gessler.
Councilmember Krogman.
Aye.
Councilmember Lozey. I believe he's absent tonight. Councilmember Mahoney.
Aye.
Councilmember Schlueter.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Councilmember Swanberg.
Aye.
And Mayor Kirby.
Aye.
Thank you.
Public comment. If you wish to participate in the public comment, you will sign up prior to the commencement of the meeting. Negative remarks about the city staff or employees is not allowed. You will have a time limit of 5 minutes to comment. The total public comment period shall be 30 minutes for non-agenda items and 30 minutes per agenda item. Disruptive and disorderly behavior will not be tolerated. Thank you very much. Administrator Krugel, do we have anybody on for any public comments?
At this time, nobody has signed up previously to the meeting. We do have 3 people in attendance, and I'm not seeing any hands raised at this moment, but if you wanted to give them a couple seconds to raise their hand if they would like to make public comment, they sure can.
Thank you. If there is none, I think we can move on.
All right.
Agenda item 5A. This is the organizational structure update. We went over this a week ago. We'll have Administrator Krugel review it again with us tonight. So at this time, I'll turn it over to you, Administrator Krugel.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Kirby, members of the City Council. I'll just give a short recap of kind of where we're at today and where we've been and what we've done so far. And then just kind of a synopsis of what's being proposed and to kind of go over some of those benefits. So again, the City of Sueur currently has 2 vacancies in the Public Works Division. That's the Public Works Manager and the Public Works Supervisor. Staff has done an internal review of the operations within that division, along with the Recreation Division. As you'll see, there's some inherent linkages between the two. Really looking at budget considerations, trying to come up with a solution or an update that doesn't have a negative budget impact, so not a significant impact on the adopted 2021 budget. And then we're also looking to gain some efficiencies within those divisions as well. So those are kind of the 2 main goals that we had when we approached this exercise. The Personnel and Budget Committee met on March 15th and on March 26th. Also, there was a meeting in there by the full City Council, as Mayor Kirby alluded to, and that was on the 22nd, I believe, of March. And then that was, in that case, was pushed back to the Personnel and Budget Committee, which met on the March 26th. And then we're here tonight on March 29th. At both the Personnel and Budget Committee meetings, there was a recommendation to move forward with the proposed organizational structure updates. I did want to, and I went over this with the Personnel and Budget, but really talk about the differences between a manager and a supervisor. I'll dive right in because right now what's being proposed is to fill an existing manager position and then moving a supervisor position into the recreation division. So there are some pretty key differences between a manager and a supervisor, and I just wanted to make sure it was clear with the group as far as what the expectations are from the administration and the department heads as far as how this works between the two. Because sometimes I think the manager and supervisor, I think those terms maybe get interchanged at times, and really there is some pretty significant differences. So a manager is basically they're in the office planning both long-term planning, short-term planning, roughly 6 hours a day. And I'm going to generalize this. There's a lot more to it than just this, but I'm going to generalize just kind of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And then about 2 hours a day, they're observing, supervising. So not only supervising their supervisor that's in the division, but also observing what the work that's being done by let's say the operators. And on the flip side, the inverse, the supervisor is doing field work, supervising and coaching subordinate employees for about 6 hours a day. And they're in the office for about 2 hours a day, planning probably, for example, like the next day's schedules, the next day's work that are to be done, kind of more short-term planning. That supervisor also participates in long-term planning, but not to the level of the manager. So those are that's just like in a nutshell, a breakdown between what a supervisor does versus what a manager does. So hopefully that's clear now. I know those terms kind of get thrown around a little bit and interchanged, not on purpose, but there is a significant difference, and there is a pay difference between the two different positions. Talking a little bit about current operations, and this is important because right now the situation that we have is our public works department is actually supporting our community center through just hours that are allocated. So currently we have 2,080 hours, and that's one full-time equivalent employee. So there's 2,080 working hours in a year of the public works operator time that is allocated to the Sueur Community Center. Currently, the recreation manager supervises all part-time and seasonal staff, other than the office assistants right now. So we'll look at the current versus proposed organizational structures. Currently, work orders from the community center go from the recreation manager to the public works manager, and then to the public works operator or operators. And then currently, the public works operator group consists of 4 individuals. So one out of those 4 individuals is really their time in 2021 is dedicated to the community center. So that's what we have going on currently under the current adopted organizational structure. Looking at this is a breakdown of what that looks like. So the current adopted budget with the public works manager, the public works supervisor, and the public works operator, you can see that the 101 fund, that's the general fund, and the 615 fund, that's the recreation fund. You can see that within that public works budget, we have $99,000 worth of time allocated from that group to the community center, which roughly equates to one full-time equivalent employee, so that 2,080 hours. As you can see in the current organizational structure, if it's large enough for you to see, the recreation manager manages the indoor pool lifeguards, the outdoor pool lifeguards, the part-time fitness instructors, the part-time buildings and grounds maintenance, and then the seasonal Zamboni driver or drivers. The rec technician, as you can see, supervises those recreation office assistants. That's under the current organizational structure that we have. Under the proposed organizational structure, you can see that really, if we go back, this public works supervisor is really shifting up into the recreation manager, underneath the recreation manager, and then taking on the seasonal Zamboni driver and those part-time building and grounds maintenance folks. So taking over some of the duties from that recreation manager as far as the supervisor goes. Keep in mind that 2019 and 2020, now 2020 was obviously a unique year with the pandemic, but we did have a recreation supervisor up there up until the beginning of 2021 that really focused on recreation programming and that type of thing. That position is no longer in that division. So just a little history there. So what we're looking at by doing this, you're creating some efficiencies, but really I want to look at the budget piece here. And really what you have is a little bit more of an increase in the 615 or the rec fund, and then a decrease in actually the allocation in the 101 fund or the public works fund. For basically it's almost a wash, but an increase of about $1,600 per year. And that's assuming that recreation maintenance supervisor will fall into the supervisor tier of a grade 10 employee, which has a range from 65 to 85,000. So on the upper end, just for planning purposes, as well. So, you know, if we would be able to hire a recreation maintenance supervisor and they come in at a lower level, you know, then you could potentially see some savings in there on the budget side. But, you know, I think it's realistic to say if somebody comes in with everything that we hope for, they'd come in at around 80,000 per year. Little bit of a summary of kind of the benefits that we're proposing or projecting with this structure update. As mentioned before, we would see a net impact of just under $1,700 with the assumptions about the hiring wage of the RMS. I'll call the recreation maintenance supervisor the RMS for short. The RMS position will also serve as a backup for the facility and airport manager, you know, that succession planning piece. The RMS will allow the recreation manager to allocate more time to coordinate, market, and promote the community center by realigning the supervisory duties. So really taking some of those supervisory duties that they have right now and allocating those to the rec supervisor. The RMS position will streamline the community center maintenance as all operations will occur underneath that recreation umbrella versus both of the recreation and public works. What that really means is that the streets and parks folks will then be focused on streets and parks really. So and then they won't be coming over to the community center. That'll be handled by the RMS position. If there's a cleanup or a situation where there needs to be some assistance that's outside of the normal operations, you know, that RMS position would handle that. The RMS position would then transition to take over the outdoor pool and all of the community center maintenance from the facility and airport manager. Again, that succession planning piece. And then the proposed structure will streamline those efficiencies again, allowing more time to be spent on streets and parks maintenance by the public works operator group. So really what we're also gaining is we're gaining 2,080 hours that those streets and parks operators can then invest in our streets and our parks, our street maintenance, things like that. So you know, that's a pretty considerable increase from what they have right now in the budget. Oops. All right, hold on one second. For some reason, that's my last slide, but that's not my last slide. Sorry about that. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
There is another slide up, Jasper, with your proposal continued.
Oh yeah. For some reason, I don't know why that slideshow ended right there, but this is the slide that I'm trying to get to. So yeah, for some reason the slideshow ended prematurely. Okay, so continued discussion of just about what this would do with that division. So previously, I just want to make sure that maybe some of the newer council members know, and I think they are aware. I did take some time and talk over the complete organizational structure with quite a few people. But the rec division previously had this rec supervisor, as mentioned before, in the rec division and handled various aspects that are now handled by that recreation manager. The proposed update will also allow the recreation manager to market for more advertising opportunities. I think the current rec manager had a chance to talk at the Personnel and Budget Committee meeting on Friday and kind of talk about what kind of things we could gain. And one of them was, you know, securing more advertising for the dasher boards in the ice arena and, trying to market and get more people into the community center and market more memberships and, what we really do there, along with the community or the recreation programming piece too. So those are just some of the benefits that we kind of talked about at the Personnel and Budget Committee level. And again, the requested action tonight is to consider a motion to approve the recommended organizational structure updates and direct staff to post the positions and bring forward potential hires to City Council at a later date once that process is completed. So with that, I'll entertain any questions that anybody may have at City Council, and we can discuss what is being proposed.
Any questions?
Mayor Kirby, I have one.
Yep, go ahead.
What are the qualifications that we're looking for in that rec supervisor?
Yeah. So what we're looking for is basically somebody that can, we have a full job description. I could pull it up, but really what we're looking for is somebody that can do some of the basic maintenance, get trained in for the basic maintenance of the community center and the outdoor pool, but then also be a point of contact for, like a direct point of contact for anything facility related at the community center. So the school district, hockey, Bulldog youth hockey, they would be working very closely with this individual to make sure that the facility is in the condition that they would like it to be. If there's any issues with the facility, they'd be the point of contact for that. So really having a dedicated point person for everything facility related at the community center. That's some of the feedback we've received from Bulldog youth hockey is that would be beneficial for them to be able to have somebody that's dedicated on site. The way it was previously, well, I guess the way it currently is that, that was a public works staff member that they would then contact and then have to go through that channel. So having somebody on site that's dedicated to them, but then also, working with the group, scheduling ice time, making sure that the ice is in the condition that it needs to be. And then really just general facility upkeep, having somebody there so that if somebody has a facility issue, that there's somebody there, let's say in the fitness center, that person that has that question about why something's a certain way or has an idea, they can reach out to somebody that's on staff. And then this recreation maintenance supervisor would also then be supervising the staff that takes care of the community center as well, does the maintenance, the cleaning, that type of thing. So that would be directly under that umbrella, housed at the community center as well.
Are there specific certifications that you're looking for? Is that mainly pool related, or is there some that are related to the ice arena as well?
Yeah, so there are certain certifications. Acquiring your certified pool operator license would be an important one, right? And that we've listed. There's a refrigeration license that requires some additional trade school that, if that person would be interested in acquiring that over time, it's not, or they maybe have it already. But that would be something that's probably a couple years of investment or a couple of years out. But really, the idea is that we still have a facility manager that has, these certifications that are required, but over time, really trying to dial in what works for that person, that RMS position, to be able to manage them. But at a minimum, a certified pool operator license would be, it's a qualification that's required.
And do we currently have anyone with those certifications or not?
We do. We have multiple people on staff that have a CPO, a certified pool operator. So we do have multiple people that have that. As far as a boiler's license, I think just the recreation manager. And then as far as a refrigeration, I believe license, that's just the recreation manager as well. Or sorry, not the facility manager.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Jasper, if I may, I've been putting a few thoughts together, and I'd just like to kind of read a short statement. I'll make it real quick if you don't mind. In the last year, our community has endured a lot of challenges economically and emotionally due to this COVID virus. We're not alone or unique. Our administration and employees have adapted this past year due to many furloughs, resignations, and sadly passing of 2 staff members. We as a council discussed in detail the reorganization of staff and filling 2 positions at our March 22nd meeting. It was decided to send it back to the Personnel and Budget for more discussion. It was our recommendation to send it forward to the City Council. After a long weekend of thoughts, reflection, and consideration, I have some reservations. 1, we have a city and community center with budget challenges right now. Our economic future is uncertain, but gets more promising every day with federal grants, economic stimuluses, proper planning, budgeting, and leadership. 2, we have a community center that has been the foundation for inspiration and growth for this community for years. In the last year, it has suffered due to circumstances out of our control. It's not running on full capacity or full amenities, falling memberships, and operating under concerning deficits. My recommendations are as follows. 1, we hire a new street and department manager immediately that will continue to maintain the confidence of his employees or her employees and the public. 2, we continue to move ahead at the community center with existing staff, technicians, employees we have. We capitalize on our existing employees, seasonal and part-time staff, contract staff if necessary, and volunteers. We then evaluate our position as we move ahead. Lastly, I am eager to work with our community center task force as we move ahead so we can evaluate more closely the needs and urgencies of our community center. I wish nothing but the best for our administration, staff, and community. And that's kind of a summary of how I feel, and I don't have any questions for you because you've gone through this program several times. It's very well prepared, and I appreciate your time in it. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Krogman.
Yeah.
After a considerable amount of thought, I favor this particular change. In other words, adopting the changes proposed by our city administrator and his staff. I don't see any of the other concerns being any reason not to go forward. In fact, I think the way to make that community center the best we can make it, to draw more people in, to make it as economically viable as possible. We've been running deficits in that place for years. We've been supporting that with money from our operating budget. Actually, we needed that money that's in our budget. We can improve on that, but I don't see that failing to do this will help that in any way. In fact, I think this will help it. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Councilmember Krogman. Anybody else have any comments, concerns, or questions for our administrator?
I would just say that for myself at the last meeting, I did have reservations about moving forward, but part of that was my newness to this role and wanting to do due diligence with understanding the structure more of our city government here. I feel that supporting the structure update would benefit the community center by allowing existing staff to do more in outreach and planning, which could be beneficial with budgeting and long-term impacts for the community center.
Thank you, Councilperson Mahoney. I appreciate it.
Mayor Kirby, Member Sullivan.
Yes, sir.
I have to agree. After a lot of thought about this, and I apologize, I wasn't at the last meeting. Put a lot of thought into this, and I agree. I think it's something that needs to move forward. I think we lost a lot when we had the rec supervisor position move away. And we, at that time, felt like it was the best interest not to fill it at that point, with an understanding that that position would hopefully come back, and whether it be a rec supervisor position or a rec manager or rec maintenance supervisor, I'm sorry. And I just think if we truly want the community center to thrive, I think we need to take some of the workload that Allison currently has, our rec manager, and give her some time to be able to advertise, get out and talk to people, try and draw memberships in, come up with a plan on how to, work on these plans on how to open the pool. I think now is the time to do that. and figure out where we want to be, how we move forward.
Thank you, Councilperson Sullivan. I appreciate it. Anybody
This
else?
member Schluter,
Yes, sir.
I have listened to both of the Personnel and Budget Committee meetings that were held on this issue, and I also agree that we should move forward with this proposal.
As we move forward, what would be the recommendation of the council? Do we make a motion in a two-part motion, first on street department manager, then on the next one, or both of them together? I would prefer that we vote on the street department manager first and then move on to the recreational position.
Mayor Kirby, Member Sullivan.
Do you agree? That was my motion.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you. With that said, as far as the street department manager position, we've had a motion to go ahead and move ahead with the hiring of a new street department manager. It's been seconded. Any other discussion? Concerns? Questions? If not, I'll turn it over to Administrator Kruger. Will take a roll.
Thank you, Mayor Kirby. We'll go Council Member Krogman.
Aye.
I don't believe Council Member Lozey is present, so we'll skip over him. Council Member Mahoney,
Aye.
Council Member Schluter,
Aye.
Council Member Sullivan,
Aye.
Council Member Swanberg,
Aye.
and Mayor Kirby.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Mayor Kirby, Member Sullivan.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we post a position and hire a position for the RMS Rec Maintenance Supervisor position at the community center.
Motion's been made. Anybody want to second that?
It's Councilmember Krogman, second rather.
Thank you, Councilmember Krogman. Any other discussion, questions, comments before we move on to a vote?
Mayor Kirby, I guess,
Yes, sir.
number one, I appreciate all the time and effort that's been put into this, and especially want to thank Administrator Kruger for walking me through the structure here of the city. My concern is that huge range in salary. If we're at the lower end, I think I can support this. If we're at the higher end, I think that'll be more difficult. I don't think anyone on this council spends more time in that facility than me. I understand partially the need. I'm concerned about the supervisor piece and the salary that goes with it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any redirect towards Councilmember Swanberg?
This Councilmember Krogman, I see it as essential to have that supervisor there to make that place work correctly. You get what you pay for. There's quite a range there from 65 to 85 or whatever it is. But it's something we need to do to make that place work correctly, to have it be the top-notch place that we want it to be. I can't speculate that the reason we're having membership issues is because of not having someone doing that, but I can kind of imagine that might be the case. It strikes me this is the way to go forward and make it the best, put our best foot forward and see what happens. If we vote this down, what are we going to do? We're not going to have anything there. And that would be, to me, that would be a disaster. So.
Mayor Kirby, Member Sullivan.
Yes, sir.
I just got a question for Jasper. Where does that salary range come from? How did we come up with those numbers?
Yeah, if I may, great question. So when we went through the compensation and classification plan that was adopted at the end of 2019 and enacted in 2020, that the grades and steps were established for managers, supervisors, directors, city administrator. And the managers are, I believe, at a grade 11, and the supervisors is one grade below that at grade 10. And generally, there's about a $10,000 at that level, $10,000 top end difference between a supervisor and a manager. And the range is generally about $20,000. So that was something that City Council adopted. That's kind of what we have, and that's what we've adopted in 2019 as far as how that works out.
Okay, so how do you determine what step they would come in on?
Well, because they would be a supervisor, or sorry, step. So we don't have a step system anymore. We have a range. So it's within that range somewhere, and it's based on their qualifications. And what staff does is ultimately it lies on me to make a recommendation to City Council. And we try to get that person in a range that is appropriate with their qualifications. So if we get somebody in that has a little bit lower or less qualifications than what the position is, and they kind of have to grow into that position, you'd likely see that recommendation come in at a lower level. I'll use the finance director that we recently hired as an example. There's a pretty wide range there from, I think, 94,000 to 221,000, so even more of a range. And we ended up hiring at kind of on the lower end of that range because of just the experience. So that happens, and we're not afraid to do it. And generally speaking, it's worked, and I think we've appropriately brought forward people where they should be in that range. So. But I want to reiterate, City Council will also be able to look at these hires as well, or what's being proposed, and then kind of see what's going on. And if there's a comfort level there, and what I'll do, just so everybody's aware, I'll bring these forward to the Personnel and Budget Committee before they go to the full council, just to kind of give that maybe another step that we don't normally do, just to make sure that we're in line with what the expectations are. So, but generally I work with everybody to come up with the range or where we want to hire somebody at. And I'm the one negotiating that with the potential hire. And then we go from there and make that recommendation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Krogman again. Let me say one last thing here. I think we need to support our city administrator and staff to come up with this plan. They know more about this than we ever will. And I think we need to have a full faith in them, knowing that they are accountable to us and will tell us whether it's working or not. I'm quite sure they will. But I think they feel it will, or they wouldn't propose it. So I think we need to support them. The other quick part of this is, you'll hear a lot in the community about why you're paying X amount of dollars to do something. This, in fact, is a slight cost change, assuming we hire somebody at $80,000 a year. I don't ever say that $1,600 is not a fair amount of money, but it's not going to break our bank, and it's going to give us the best we can do. So it strikes me as it's worth going forward with, and it's appropriate that we do so.
Thank you, Councilmember Krogman. We had a motion from Councilmember Sullivan. I think it was seconded by Councilmember Krogman. There isn't any other discussion? I'll turn it over to Administrator Krugel for a roll.
Thank you, Mayor Kirby. We'll start with Councilmember Krogman.
Aye.
Councilmember Mahoney.
Aye.
Councilmember Schleter.
Aye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Councilmember Swanberg.
Aye.
And Mayor Kirby.
Nay.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
I'll make a
everybody.
motion to adjourn.
Wow, that was quick. You got there, Mr. Swanberg, before the screen pops up.
Second
No,
by
with that
Sullivan.
motion, with that motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, well, have a good night, everybody, and thank you for all your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night.